National unit rankings. Quiz time, Will. Florida is ranked at quarterback in national unit rankings. This is Athlon. Where do you think they're ranked?
At quarterback?
National unit rankings.
14th?
So, fourth in the SEC.
14th?
Fifth.
Oh.
The only non-SEC team in the top 5, Clemson.
Oh, God, another one. I don't like Klubnik either.
You're like, wow. So the guys who went pretty heavy stat crazy last year, you're diving deeper than the stats. And
so I have not looked very heavily into Cade Klubnik's stats. So it's entirely possible that he did something last year that I missed. But I have not been overly impressed when I have watched him live.
I haven't really. I agree. When I've watched him live, he does not. He does. I don't get the wow factor.
So I don't want to be too, but a QB rating of 148.2 last year, yards per attempt 7.5, completion percentage 63.4. Now he did run for 3.9 yards per attempt, so he's basically Garrett Nussmeier with a little bit better running. Like that. That's where we're at, which means he's above average. Because the thing that in my statistic that I came up with that tries to look at efficiency of quarterbacks, taking sacks is a killer. You just absolutely destroy your efficiency. And I think that makes sense. Like it's not something where it's like, oh, this happens and it's a limitation of that stat. It's that this happens, and when a quarterback takes a sack, he kills a drive. So I think it's absolutely fair to put that on him. So Klubnik is less susceptible to that. But I mean, look, QB rating of 146 is just average. So I guess and that's right where Nussmeier was last year. He was like 143. So, like this idea that these guys were like elite quarterbacks and that you have to project Lagway to be an elite quarterback. Lagway had a better QB rating than both of them last year. And he only completed 59% of his balls, and we should expect that to go up when he's got 2 legs. So I just
and more experience. I mean, just more experience.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Maybe I just suck at evaluating quarterbacks. I don't know what the problem is because those are the two. Like if you'd have told me Klubnik before this episode, I would have come prepared, locked and loaded with stats to say no. It's basically the ACC's version of Nussmeier. Like I look at the stat profiles. It's the same dude. Like,
yes,
same dude. I don't know.
There we go. National unit rankings quarterback. Texas, Clemson, LSU, South Carolina, Florida. I mean, 4 SEC teams in the top 5. 6 Penn State, 7 Ohio State, 8 Arizona State, 9 Miami, and 10 Oregon. Will, so I mentioned Florida's running backs. 4th in the SEC. They are ranked in the top 10 nationally with running backs at 9th. Jaden Ball, Jacoby Jackson getting a lot of love, carrying Florida to the 9th ranked running back room in the country, according to Athlon. Not top 10 in wide receivers. Florida's offensive line 5th overall, Will, in the country, behind Notre Dame, Penn State, Texas A&M, Miami, and Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a combination offensive line running back rating. Really, when you look at the running backs, you give any running back a running start, they're going to be able to do a really nice job. Jaden Ball, I think last year showed some flashes. And you've got guys like Trayon Webb coming back and other guys who are going to be able to contribute where maybe you can give those guys a blow where you couldn't last year. I mean, look, the only time I ever remember a running back actively hurting Florida last year was the Jacoby Jackson fumble against Texas. And let's be honest, that was the difference between Florida losing by 50 and Florida losing by 43. So I'm not necessarily all that inclined to I don't have strong feelings that Florida's running back room is way better than these other programs.
Yeah.
But I'm also not sure that it matters. I think, if you have a guy like Ashton Genty who can completely differentiate your offense at the running back position, then I think it matters. But again, what I said about quarterbacks, I think is even more true at the running back position is there's a lot of compression there. Right. So if you've got Adrian Peterson, yeah, that makes a big difference at the running back position. But if there's nobody who's Heisman Trophy worthy at that position, and you're saying, oh, well, this one's 1 and this one's 4, what are you really arguing about? You're arguing about an extra half a yard or an extra broken tackle every once in a while. You're not arguing about a game changing guy at the position. I think Florida has an opportunity. Ball has an opportunity to grow into that sort of guy. And I think when you look at the yard per carry average, Jackson actually is pretty high up there as well. But considering what Florida has come back on the offensive line, and the bigger part is what I talked about. And if Florida has an injury on the offensive line, there are still guys that you can be confident can get the job done, at least at an adequate SEC level while those other guys are out, which means the running back's not going to get hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage a bunch. And, when you make a guy dance behind the line of scrimmage, every running back looks average. And so these guys are going to have an opportunity to get downhill, and I think that's going to give them an opportunity to flash.
Lindy's, man, so weird to me. They do top 10 backfield, so they combine quarterback and running back. 1 Penn State, okay. 2 Texas, okay. 3 Notre Dame, okay. 4 LSU. 5 Oregon. 6 Oklahoma. 7 Miami. 8 South Carolina. 9 Ohio State. And 10 Michigan. I don't know how you have South Carolina quarterback and running back combined in the top 10 and not Florida. Michigan replacing Khalil Mullins and Donovan Edwards. And you got Bryce Hunter as a true freshman. That trio is not better than Lagway, Ball, and Jacoby Jackson. So Lindy's kind of threw me off for this because here's another weird one. They have Florida as a top 10 receiver group in the country. And I mean, I'm all for it, but I think when you compare it to quarterback and running back and not having that top 10, but have wide receiver top 10, that's where it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And not to have Florida's offensive line top 10. Alabama, Penn State, Texas A&M, Illinois, Utah, Wisconsin, Oregon, Clemson, Iowa State, Notre Dame. So Lindy's is kind of odd to me in their top 10 national unit rankings.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's splitting hairs and all that stuff with some of them, but it's just when you see some of the other teams, that's where it doesn't start to make sense to me.
Well, let me tell you something a little bit about marketing there, Dave. You got to give a little bit. This is one of the things about these preseason magazines that preview every team is if you just say Texas is the best at everything, then only Texas people buy your magazine. So you do need to give a little bit of run to other folks. But hey, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So if I look at Arch Manning's stats last year, so we sort of glossed, because of Klubnik and because of Nussmeier, I've definitely gone off the rails on those. But who would you say, what was the most impressive game for Arch Manning last year? He went 26 of 31 for 325 yards against Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And then he went 15 of 29 for 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks against Louisiana Monroe. So that's 60 of his 90 passes were against the worst defense in the SEC and Louisiana Monroe.
Right.
If all DJ Lagway had gotten was his 20, so the 2 that Lagway had where he threw more than 26 passes to start with was he had the win over Samford, where 18 of 25, 456 for 3 touchdowns. And then he had the win over LSU on one leg, 13 of 26 for 226 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. So if I took those 2 games, and those are sort of look, Samford and LSU is better competition than Louisiana Monroe and Mississippi State, and Lagway has a better stat line in those 2 games. And if you look at what Lagway did against Mississippi State, 7 of 7 for 76 yards. So when they were giving him 1 out of every 3 drives, he was perfect. The game against Tennessee when he came in the second half is really the only time he was bad from there on out. I think the interceptions and the struggles against some of the zone defenses against Florida State and Tulane sort of stick in people's minds. But I look at it and I go, I get it. Texas is a better team. I have no doubt. Texas is a better team, has more around them. I think if you look at the overall stats that Manning put up last year, they're really, really good.
It's projection.
Well, again, so I'm sitting there going, you have to do less projection to say Lagway is going to be awesome than you do to say Manning is going to be awesome. They're both number 1 overall quarterback coming in from a recruiting perspective. And I think you can make a strong case that Lagway had a much stronger start to his career than Manning has. Now, Manning sat for a couple of years, and so maybe that factors in as well. Certainly, he hasn't done anything when he's been on the field to make me doubt that he's going to be a really good quarterback. But I think that's the other thing that we do need to think about is, he went 3 of 6 for 19 yards against Georgia. He, or I'm sorry, that's Lagway I'm looking at going 3 of 6. If I look at what Manning did, he went.
Did he even throw versus Florida? Because he came in.
Yeah. 3 of 6 for 19 yards against Florida. Now that was also at a point where they were just trying to run the clock.
I just remember he played versus Florida. That was all that was. I wasn't trying to.
But I mean, you're talking about UTSA. He went 9 of 12 for 223 and 4 touchdowns. Woo! and then against Colorado State, 5 of 6 for 95 yards and a touchdown. There's nobody. There's nothing on there. It's not like he played against Georgia in the SEC championship. It's not like he played against Clemson or Ohio State. It's not like he played in any of the critical games for Texas throughout the year. That was Ewers.
And remember, that was the storyline going into those late season games is how much is Arch Manning going to play? How much is Arch Manning going to play? Quinn Ewers, is he healthy? And he didn't.
Well, and again, he may be awesome. I think you look at the high school profile from, I look at high school stats a lot. I think there's certainly reason to believe that Manning's going to be good. He hasn't done anything when he's been on the field to suggest that he won't be excellent. The only point I'm making is that the sample size that we've seen on the field for Manning is smaller than the sample size that we've seen on the field for Lagway. And you factor that in that Manning, whenever he didn't feel good, could go over to the sideline and Quinn Ewers would come in versus Lagway's out there with his leg taped down so that his hamstring doesn't fly off his leg against 2 major SEC opponents where he's got to win or his coach gets fired. And, the difference between the level of competition and the level of pressure on that particular guy, I don't have any, I don't think Lagway is going to wilt under the pressure that's on him this year. I mean, think about that, right? He goes into that LSU game coming in with that special contraption on his leg to make sure that his hamstring doesn't just pop. He's out there playing only because if he doesn't play and we get another Aiden Warner special and Florida loses by 25 or 30 to LSU, the coaching staff is gone. And he goes out there and all of a sudden things look real again. And then again, the next week against Ole Miss does the same thing.
Against Ole Miss now, I've had this conversation recently. The best pass rush in the country, by the way.
Yeah. And it turns out Florida wound up with a better pass rush because it turns out when the quarterback gets rid of the ball right away, the pass rush gets neutralized pretty quickly and those guys get tired. So, again, I think Arch Manning's going to be really good. I know I've crapped on Klubnik and Nussmeier tonight because I think that those guys don't – and I don't think those guys are terrible. I just think they're average quarterbacks, and I don't see this giant – there's nothing in their statistical profile that says if they improve that one thing, everything will get better and they'll just start to dominate. I think they're going to have good games. I think they're going to have bad games. But I don't think either of them are winning the Heisman Trophy. I think Lagway has an opportunity to. I think Manning has an opportunity to. But I think if I look at the overall profile of both of those, I would predict it for Lagway before I would predict it for Manning. Other than we know that the Heisman Trophy sometimes is a team award, and it's like the best quarterback on the best team. And if Manning plays well, we know Texas is going to win a bunch of games because the defense is going to be holding opponents to 6 and 9 points every time out there, and he's going to have the ability to make a couple of mistakes as things go along. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. If you look at Manning's splits last year, he didn't do anything against anybody who was any good. And I think if you look at Lagway's stats, he did a lot of stuff against teams that were good. I would contend that Ole Miss was one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country last year, and that Florida and Lagway specifically kept them out of the playoff. And part of that is because I think Florida, by the time you got to that game, with the way the defense was playing and the confidence that they had with Lagway behind center, that all of a sudden you were looking at a top 15 team by the time the end of the year came around. And, you go to the swamp against a top 15 team. Sometimes you don't come out alive.
Yeah, there we go. It played out. I like that, though, by the way, with the Manning thing. You certainly can see it. It is a lot of projection. It is a lot of the name getting hyped up there. So kind of goes to your point. We might see a whole lot of really, really good quarterback play in the SEC. You might have Manning and Lagway and Sellers and Nussmeier all
don't say
it. Might. Throwing it all over the field, and you have just crazy race with Georgia and Alabama aren't going anywhere. They may not have the quarterbacks, but their defenses are going to keep them in it, and they'll get good quarterback play here and there. But it's going to be about. I mean, I guess you could always say this, but the performance in these games against each other. Florida versus LSU, Florida, Georgia, Bama, Georgia, Georgia, Texas. I mean, a lot of these top teams play each other this year, and a lot of tough road environments. And it's going to be interesting to see. I guess when you look at the top, South Carolina and LSU play each other. LSU and Bama play each other, I guess. But, it's just you get these unique matchups. And you're going to have a lot of good quarterback versus quarterback matchups.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, like I said, I can't wait for September 13th, man. Like, we can sit here and argue about it. I think Lindy's and Athlon are wrong. I think everybody I've talked to this offseason, they've been surprised at where I've had Nussmeier.
Right.
I think they'd be surprised with where I have Klubnik as well. And, the beauty of it is that we'll see it on the field. And it might be that we're coming on here the Monday after that game, September 15th, and you're sitting there going, Will, what happened? Your boy Nussmeier just lit it up all over the field. And I'll be like, oh, God, I guess I was wrong. And, that'll be awful. But I suspect that we're going to be coming out of that one going, ooh, we got our guy. And they don't. And that's kind of awesome. So,
there's a part it could be a shootout, too, if Florida's defense doesn't show up.
Well, I mean, look, if Florida's defense plays like it has any time other than the last 4 or 5 games last year, then, yeah. Lagway's going to have to do an awful lot of work to keep things afloat. It's going to look a lot more like that game in Baton Rouge where we had Trask and Burrow just going up and down the field the entire time.
And you're going to have to do something about your TV that night because I think LSU and Clemson play each other week 1. So you got your Klubnik versus Nussmeier.
I'm watching something else.
I think Florida's at the same time. That's what I'm saying. You got to get your other, but Long Island and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that game. I think that game's at 8 p.m. So Florida,
I tell you what. Hey, if people think I'm lying, watch that LSU versus Clemson game and take a shot every time one of the quarterbacks checks it down on 3rd down. You'll be done by the end of the first quarter. Like, no question about it.
Hey, very good Clemson defensive line versus that new look LSU offensive line that you mentioned earlier. So
what you're saying is we might get Nussmeier's backup by the time Florida's going to Baton Rouge.
I didn't say it.
Not because he plays bad, because he gets injured.
I know. I knew where you were going with that.